every step that we have taken has put us in this position here of abject failure where you have no options. So from 2014 all the way through today, so you're talking, more than a decade of disastrous policy by unwilling to acknowledge reality has now put us in a position where the only viable outcome right now is walking away by the current Trump administration. That's the only thing that can end the bleeding in every capacity, in every sense of the word right now. Because Russia just doesn't have to submit to it. That's just what we need to understand. And every Russian leader has been saying this, and all the capacities we keep showing, and they demonstrated on the battlefield. And that's where we're at. If Trump is good on his word here and they walk away literally within days, according to Rubio, then we're going to find out how much pain the West and Ukraine is willing to take before it finally acknowledges this is not going to work and we're going to have to submit and have a negotiated settlement here. Otherwise, then what you're going to do is you're going to fight it till the end. This phrase that was used so many times in the early part of the war, that the West just wants to support this war to the last Ukrainian, was a pejorative, but it's at risk of being turned into a reality if words like this from the Ukrainian leader, Volodymyr Zelensky, play out.
Вважаю, що пан Вітков прийняв для себе стратегію російської сторони. Вважаю, що вона дуже небезпечна, тому що він свідомо або несвідомо, я не знаю, розповсюджує російські наративи. В будь-якому випадку це не допомагає. І я не бачу в нього мандата обговорювати українські території, бо території наші, нашим людям належать, нашому народові, і не тільки нам, а майбутньому України.
So you had Zelensky went on 60 Minutes last Sunday, and he threw both Trump and Vice President Vance under the bus again. And he just trashed them and said, you're just succumbing to Russian narratives and all this kind of stuff. The president and the vice president. After the disaster the previous month in the Oval Office, which everybody knows about right now. Then a couple of days later, he went out and added Witkoff to that and said, well, he's not even qualified to be making these kind of comments. And if that weren't enough, then yesterday, while all these meetings are taking place in Paris, he adds this new one here that we're not going to give away anything. We're not going to sacrifice this to anybody else. This is our land. It's our sovereign right, etc. If he sticks with that, then he is condemning his people until they fight to the last man. And I want to show you just a bit of a report from Deutsche Welle on what that means, what that graphically means right now on the ground in Ukraine.
In Ukraine, kids as young as 10 are getting combat ready. As fighting with Russia drags on, secret military camps across the country are teaching kids the art of war, including how to shoot pistols, rifles, and even machine guns.
Я знаю, я не боюся. Я вже була і пораненою, і витягувала, і все робила.
Ukrainians realize the war may continue for many years, and they want to be prepared. Today's children may just be tomorrow's soldiers. The camps take that idea to heart with a rigorous schedule.
The hardest part is physical exercises at 6 a.m. because you go to bed at 2 a.m. and you sleep 4 hours. You need to run 3 circles, do some push-ups, some exercises, and then all day you won't sleep, won't eat.
But not all Ukrainians think these camps are a good idea. They say kids should be kids, not trained as soldiers for future battles.
Yeah, Gary, that's enough on that. I think that you get the gist there. That is heartbreaking. To me, that's even more heartbreaking than seeing the bodies pile up in these huge military cemeteries that are popping up all over the country and littering the countryside with these flags of the dead. I mean, it's horrible because you're saying that it's not enough that we've lost our actual combat troops. It's not enough that, by the way, there is lots of reports that Ukraine is about to lower the age down to 18 to its mobilization, to its forced mobilization. And they're going to now try to rape another generation of Ukraine men who the Ukraine side will desperately need going forward. Once this war comes to an end, if Trump and Putin and actually the European Union, if they could all come together and say, all right, that's it, enough is enough, even we have finally lost our appetite for the destruction going on in Ukraine, and we finally recognize belatedly that it can't be won. So we're going to end it, and it stops tomorrow afternoon, or even a few days. Let's say Monday, because apparently that's the next time there's going to be some talks. The damage done already is just catastrophic. But now then, you see that Ukraine is willing to, and this said, according to that report there from Deutsche Welle, which, by the way, is very strongly pro-Ukrainian, but they're admitting now that camps all over Ukraine, it said, secret camps are training children, and they interviewed a couple of them there. And you see these are kids, literal kids, 14 years old, 10 years old, out there talking about stuff that are preparing for combat operations. And what do you think that's going to do to their psyche, for crying out loud? I mean, this stuff is going to take generations to unwind as it is. It is egregious that you are willing, as the leader of your country, to allow this kind of thing, maybe even enable it, for all I know, and support it. That we want to train little kids. Don't you understand that this is almost exactly playing out how the end of the Nazis, the German Nazis, did in World War II? The Volkssturm, they called it. They put basically anybody in uniform they could find. Kids, the Hitler Youth, old men, people who were too old to do anything. That was their last stop. And it was already over by that time. But instead of recognizing it and ending the war early, they just continued until Russia rolled into Berlin and literally destroyed everything and killed everyone who came into their path. Do you want to repeat that? Do you want to put Russia in a position to where it says, okay, we tried everything negotiated to end this, and anything approximating a good deal for the Ukraine side, but when that is rejected, and when they see the leader of the other side saying what he just said yesterday, and when they see that they're training even their kids to continue the war, that signals to the Russian side that negotiations aren't going to work and they can't accomplish anything. Therefore, the only thing left is to continue rolling across Europe, or across Ukraine. Now, I've said many times that I think that the likelihood is that Russia is going to go to the Dnieper River. You keep going further enough down here, and they may say, we are not even going to stop at the gates of Kiev. We may take the whole thing. I mean, we can't rule out that possibility. They have the capacity. Whether they have the political will to just continue rolling is anybody's guess, but they do have the capacity. And the more this goes, when you see that the other side is getting down to kids, putting them in uniform and getting them trained up and ready to fight, I mean, that tells you that they have completely lost, and they've lost any sense of probity to say, we have to recognize we are not going to destroy even the children of our future generations. 18-year-olds is already bad enough, but now you're dipping into even below that. That's unconscionable. And I don't know that any Americans are aware of that. I didn't even see that. Gary found that one himself. So that was news even to me. It doesn't shock me, though. It's disappointing and it hurts, but it doesn't shock me because of this. Zelensky, listen, we need to understand one thing here, and I'm going to kind of leave you with this. For those who are upset at Trump, for those who are upset at Rubio for saying we're going to walk if we don't get the deal that we want here, you need to understand they don't have a viable negotiating partner on the Ukraine side. Europeans can be cajoled, they can be moved into certain directions. We can present them with information that eventually they'll come across. Not Zelensky. He has now taken himself off the board because he cannot be rationally discussed to anything with. He cannot think rationally. He cannot make normal calculations and can be counted on in negotiations, private negotiations, to come to the rational conclusions. He has shown that he is willing to sacrifice everything, his entire country, to continue the war. It's now beyond question that there is no military solution for the Ukraine side. You can't avoid loss. All you can do is end the fighting and end the bloodshed. That's it. That's the only options that you have right now. And so far, Zelensky is choosing the one that will keep fighting until we lose to the end. And with that kind of a partner, there is no negotiating. There's no talking to him because he can't be rational. The only thing left is what makes sense for the United States. And unfortunately, this is the best thing the U.S. could do for the remainder of the Ukrainians who are still alive. Because if we just facilitated the delusion and said, all right, well, I'll keep giving you some amount of ammunition, some amount of weapons, intelligence, targeting, whatever, all you're going to do is make it so that the war continues on all the way and that more people die. If you take away the weapons, Doug McGregor has said this on our channel several times. If you just say, we're not just walking and stop talking, but we're also stopping all of our inventory. So everything else that's been going, all of it stops today. Nothing else goes in the pipeline. All of our people, all of our intelligence support, all of our advisors that we may have on the ground, we're withdrawing all of it. The war could literally be over in 2 weeks, maybe even less than that. Because once the Ukraine army, those guys who are out there slugging it out on this 2,000-kilometer front, once they realize that the game is over and that all U.S. support has stopped, the chance of them continue fighting, I think, is pretty low. I think you'll see something like you did in Afghanistan in August of 2021, where once the U.S. withdrew, the Afghan forces just folded their tents up and went home. That's all there was. That's the best thing we could do, because then the killing will stop. That's a harsh thing to say, but let me one more time reiterate and make sure it's crystal clear. The only reason we're in this position today is because of our collective failure to recognizing truth and reality years ago. This is now what we're faced with. So I really hope that Trump and Rubio and Witkoff and all these folks mean exactly what they say. Nothing would make me happier than on Monday for them to say, we're walking. That's the only thing that's going to work right now, short of a come to Jesus moment for Zelensky, where he says, okay, I'm willing to concede. And then I think the Russians will say, all right, now we'll have a ceasefire and we can talk about the execution of the end terms here. That's about the only thing we have. We'll see what that happens. He said within days. So we'll see if it happens. Elsewhere in that interview, Rubio said that they're going to basically take the weekend through Easter, and then they're going to have some more conversations on Monday. So believe me, Daniel Davis Deep Dive will keep you appraised of all that's going on with there and what happens with that. And any other events we have breaking in between now and Monday, we'll bring them to you. But in any case, we appreciate you being with us today. We wish you all a good Easter and hope it's a safe one for you and your family wherever you are. Our hearts will remain and our prayers will remain for the people in Ukraine, for the guys who are fighting this war that shouldn't have even been going on this long. And I pray to God that this Easter time brings sharp relief to the minds of all the people involved so that the killing can stop right after it. That would be the greatest Easter gift anyone could ever ask for. Thank you very much. We appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time on Daniel Davis Deep Dive.